In today's business world, change is the only constant, and mastering transformation is the ultimate key to success. Welcome to Shift and Thrive. I'm your host, Natalie Nathanson. Each week, we'll bring you conversations with CEOs who delve into how they successfully drove critical change in their organization. This show is sponsored by Magnitude Consulting, bringing you the thinking power of a growth consultancy and the getting it done power of a full-service B2B marketing agency. Today's guest is a recognized thought leader who brings nearly 30 years of experience in global customer experience innovation and is on a mission to help businesses deliver smarter, faster, and more visionary customer experiences. He's successfully built and exited 2 prior companies and has led companies through some major strategic shifts. He launched his current venture 8 years ago, and the company is reinventing how businesses connect, support, and sell across every customer touchpoint. In 2024, they were honored as the best contact center immersive technology provider, a reflection of one of the many key markets their solution is designed to serve. He is the founder and CEO of Grypp. Pete Jones, welcome to the show.
Thanks very much, Natalie. Great to be on.
I'm very happy to have you on. And, one of the things I love exploring on this show is the key inflection points or kind of the key moments when a company's direction fundamentally changes, whether that's, a market insight, a customer conversation, or sometimes a spark of intuition. In your case, you'd previously shared that Grypp evolved its model and initial market focus based on a somewhat serendipitous interaction that shifted a number of things for you and drove you to redesign the solution in a hugely compelling way. So I'd love to unpack that. And can you maybe start by taking us back to that turning point and, what sparked the shift?
Sure. Yeah, I'd love to claim foresight and great entrepreneurial knowledge and skill, but it wasn't that at all. I met a guy at a bar. So I'll wind back a little bit first. So we were working in various parts of the world, bringing technology into the sales process for organizations who were selling a range of products. And we were very happy doing that. Loved travel, loved the people that we were involved with, all working fine. With film companies, technology companies, everything's working well. And like I say, I was in a bar and met this particular chap, and we just started talking, and he was telling me that he was served an industry, the call center industry, and he was from a large business process outsourcer, so they were a provider on lots of different types of campaigns to different companies. And he started telling me about what they did, and it was like the light of Damascus. It was incredible. What he was basically telling me is this industry, which is running millions and millions of people, doing hundreds of millions of calls every year. Ostensibly, not much had changed since the 1870s, since the phone was invented. So it's 2 people on a call. 50% of the people are blind to the issue or blind to the product, and they're usually the ones that are charged with fixing the issue or the product. So you've got, on the one hand, you've got customers with problems that the agents can't see, and the agents have to guide them how to fix the problems. Or you've got agents with products trying to sell products that the customer can't see, and the customer's got to imagine them and buy them. It was like, this is crazy. And everything we'd been doing up to that point was about bringing systemization, bringing visual interaction into every interaction, basically. So putting down a way for customers and agents to work together, typically in a face-to-face environment, and do it in a way that it left digital footprints so that the companies, the corporates, could manage that and replicate and scale effectively. And we just saw a massive opportunity to do it remotely with the call center industry. And that really set us on this next epic part of the adventure. And that's what we've been doing for the last seven and a bit years.
Take me through kind of your decision-making process around making that shift. So you had this conversation, had the insight, And then what? Was it something you kind of analyzed? Was it right away? You knew you wanted to go full steam ahead? What was that like for you as the leader?
Right away. It was it was a real light bulb moment. I think our mission is to improve business through improved communication. And we were doing it in various ways, making things better, making people more emotionally engaged with products, making comms clearer through visual interaction. But this was an opportunity to do it on a whole different scale. And I think, you know, every single, there's so many use campaigns that were racing through my head at the time, whether you're trying to sell something and somebody can't see it. So they order it and it's not quite the color they expected. And then they send it back and all the costs. My background, was I did a lot of T&M studies where you're looking for efficiency gains. And I was just thinking, it's so inefficient. Every word costs money. And we're using so many words to describe things. And often it's a guessing game. And somebody's paying for all of that. Whereas if you could see, you could get to the point so much quicker, more efficiently, and do it in a more engaging way. So I think we're all customers of call centers. And when I was imagining some of the calls that, I'd had lately, it made perfect sense. I had one call where I was booking a vacation and I talked to this nice lady in the Philippines. She was absolutely brilliant. I understood her perfectly. And I was booking a trip for a party of us to go to Nice in the south of France. And it was amazing. We were going to go and watch the rugby. It was all systems go. And I talked to her and she did it. And I couldn't get it on the website. And I was delighted. 20 minutes of my life I was really pleased to spend. And then when I got the booking, I was going on holiday to Leeds. And it didn't occur to me that maybe she wouldn't understand my accent. So again, the ability to see the booking at the time, I'd have been able to go, no, not Leeds, Nice in France. So it would have been fun, but then you have to ring back, spend another 20 minutes, cost them money, cost you time. And this is happening millions and millions of times a day. So yeah, I think we knew where our heart would be for the next, decade ahead. And, it's bearing out in everything we do.
Yeah. I think we all have those kind of stories and experiences of our own contact center experiences that leaves much to be desired. And I think, 8 years later, we still feel that today. So I think there's tremendous opportunity ahead. I'm curious to hear, what did it take to get you on that path? Can you talk about the product, the team, strategically, what did you do to move you towards this transformation?
So, yeah, a great question. We had to find the right people to lead because it was a very different mindset. I think the biggest challenge, and it's a challenge I always wanted to solve, but we never did up until this point, was having a system that could adapt to any industry, product or service without the need for a single line of code. And that required immense thought. So before we put finger to keyboard, before we did anything regarding product, we spent the first 8 months just looking at what we'd done before, refining it, taking those learnings, understanding what they gave us, that deep knowledge gave us, that would allow us to build a system that was totally, not highly, totally configurable, and all the other good stuff that goes with it, mobile first, all of that. And the design of the system was imperative because it's like creative. I've run marketing agencies, and the thing about good thinking is you never come up against a dead end. If you can think well and you build a solid foundation, you can build anything on it. If the foundation's got a problem, everything you do thereafter, you're just waiting for the cracks, you're waiting for the issues. So that solid foundation required a really different approach, which we took, and different people. We brought a new team in, led by incredible person from the top. And I think that was the pivotal change in approach that gave us something that was replicable and scalable. And we also started partnering with BPOs who are phenomenal in their core business model, as well as being a user and distributor. They work with every type of business on every type of call and campaign type. So they are truly the experts in call centers. So once you get that knowledge behind you, you make sure that you don't get the dead ends, and you test and constantly test and check your thinking and the foundation. And I have to say, it stood up remarkably well. And I think that was the biggest swing shift in the way that we did things.
I know one of the things that, you talked about not having to reconfigure the solution for different markets. I think you have a lot of different use cases that you serve, different industry verticals that you can serve outside of kind of only the contact centers. I think that can present a lot of opportunity, but can also present challenges, especially right for a smaller company of, where do you focus? Where do you prioritize? So can you talk a little bit about what are the impact on your go-to-market, and how do you think about, where to place those bets?
Yeah, it's a great point. And I think the fundamental is we're an enabler more than an enactor. So we like a partnership model. We like to work with partners to help them go to market for their key and core markets and strengths. And our job is to give them something with no dead ends that allows them to do everything they want to do. And when you find those partners that really want to support and lift you, that partnership is incredible. It's the best, because everybody sticks to what they're good at. I think the other side, we have to look for the signals. I liken it to gold mining. If you hit a seam of gold, you mine like crazy, right? But you're constantly looking for those seams. And I think, we've hit a number of those, and we're quite focused on certain areas and certain markets that we could reach, and also helping partners to facilitating them to reach their cause. So things like, for us, anything with tech out in the field, where engineer visits are happening, we can save a ton of money on those. You might save up to 15% of a company's engineers from going out on unnecessary calls. And that's a really good ROI based model, and everything revolves around ROI. Everything we do is about immediate and enduring value. So if we can't see an ROI, there's no point in doing it, because everyone wants nice to haves. But as soon as the chips are down, the first thing to go away are all the nice to haves. And it's only if it makes great economic sense that people proceed. So all of the engineer stuff, selling has been a core part of what we've done since day dot. So helping people shape their go-to-market, helping people sell more through the integration of visual tech is still a huge part of what we do, and it always will be, and innovating there. And then retail, we think there's a really major play coming in retail that will shift the needle and help unite the worlds of remote and physical in presence.
Yeah. I like that you used the word signals as you were talking about kind of where to focus in the market, because I do think this is one of those disciplines that to some can feel like black magic, and right, not knowing kind of how to pick. And I think there's both an art and a science to it. And right, whether you're looking at the market size of the different segments, and are they growing or shrinking? How are they faring in the current and upcoming economy? What's the willingness to pay? What is the impact? And certainly have a lot of very compelling impact metrics to share. So just the discipline of kind of how do you think through that, and then where do you place those bets is really important. I wonder if maybe on the ROI component, is there an example, like a client example that can help kind of bring this to life, that you can share?
Yeah, certainly. I think the one from I think just a couple of weeks ago now was really a good, compelling illustration, and that was a large UK retailer who had a challenge, as I think all UK retailers do, with returns. And this was on the big and bulky section, as they'd term it. And I think the numbers broadly were they were getting 1,050 returns a week prior to implementing the Grypp visualization assistance. And post, they were getting shy of 820. So they had about a 22% reduction in returns. That annualized to a 3.5 million benefit. Ridiculously, and sadly, the ROI was 190 odd or 100 and change by the time it had been through. And I say sadly only because clearly the end solution was really inexpensive for the client. The value was tremendous, so maybe there was a balance on the scales that needed to adjust there. But I think everything we do, we aim to get at least a 10x ROI. Even in doing that, I think the AHT dropped 5.7%, and the NPS scores went up 207%. So everyone gets happier. One of the byproducts of that was they also got a lot of hang-ups, which in normal state of affairs is that wouldn't be good. The customers hung up, but the hang-ups were the potential frauds where people were ringing up for refunds or compensation because of damage, and as soon as they understood that the company can now visualize and say, "Oh, show me the damage," suddenly the phone would go dead and they'd never call back. So it was a really interesting mix, but they were charged environments and we were just, blown away with, and that, the interesting thing again, not a line of code was written, live and implemented and fully working with all reporting, branding and engagement within 2 days. And this is a campaign that had been running for 10 years. So I think it's that ability without even going deep into an architectural integration where you can make such an impact, up to a 20-point impact on a campaign that's run for a decade. That's really exciting.
Yeah, I love that. Well, I think the vision of the 10x ROI at a minimum as sort of a guiding metric, but then all these other benefits that you're talking about, kind of fraud reduction and happier customers and all of that, it really helps make the person buying the solution be the hero of their organization that they're bringing this in.
100%.
Hey, this is Natalie, your Shift and Thrive host. After chatting with lots of CEOs, one thing is crystal clear. Leveling up your company means having a killer go-to-market strategy. That's what my crew at Magnitude Consulting does every day. If you're trying to step up your marketing game, whether it's strategizing, accelerating your pipeline, expanding into new markets, or getting into AI and automation, let's talk. No pitch, no pressure, just good conversation. Visit shiftandthrivepodcast.com/Natalie to schedule a time. Can't wait to connect. I want to shift gears a little bit, Pete, and having this kind of a bold shift in your organization, rebuilding the product, reorienting the solution, happens with strong leadership at the helm. And I love hearing the conviction that you had around this. Would love to just hear more about your leadership in general. Can you talk about how you describe your own leadership style, and is there anything that has evolved in that, or have you kind of stayed more and more steadfast in your leadership?
So I think I don't know whether I'd call myself the best leader. I think you have to ask the team on those sort of things. I think my style is, what you see is what you get. I'm prepared to do whatever it takes to win, and my expectation of the team is that they're prepared to do the same. So I guess it's not an easy place to be. I think, if we're a team on the pitch, everyone plays for the team. And there's a lot of love for everyone in the team, but we're a company rather than a family. So it's not, the love comes with an expectation of performance, let's say. So I think the demands, and a lot of that is really about trying to ensure that everybody steps up because everybody else is. And, we've seen in the past where you get a team member that isn't there, the effect that has on the morale of everyone else. And I think my role is to try and help with that as soon as, and set the right expectations, and really, lead by example in that count, be there whenever needed, do what's needed, whatever that is, to help with that goal and win. And clearly, like any leader is going to do, sitting down and understanding and taking an interest and caring about the team, right? So it's not like I'm running around every day with, my arm around everyone and tissues in hand and, everything else. But I think people will understand that I care, and the expectation's high, so is the care and the love. And yeah, we're a team, and we live and die together.
I wish as a leader that everyone in an organization had, high standards and accountability and all of that. I know it can sometimes be hard to find those people with the right profile. How do you identify people kind of in your hiring process that'll kind of fit the culture you have?
It's not infallible, right? We have multiple interviews with the management team. A lot of it's about the feel. Obviously, references are important, and where people know people who are really skilled, that saves a lot of frog kissing, as I'd call it. But we definitely kiss frogs time to time, and I think when you do that, you need to be able to move on and just have the stamina to keep going and find the next, and be as enthused as you were on the last. And that's where, it's like when I take a flight. I think my wiring's odd. I can get on a small European flight that everyone finds a chore. I'm super excited. I'm just going to a new place. I'm going to discover something. I'm like, anything to me is a journey and progression. And I think that's contagious. And I think, once the milk's spilt, you move on, and you've always got to look forward. So are we the best at finding, everything and getting it right first time? Definitely not. But I think we end up with people who fit us and fit our mold. And my analogy that I try and give to people is, look, if we're a round hole, are you a round peg? We'll tell you everything we can about us so that you can help make that decision. But if you're not a round peg, it will be painful at times, because the mallet comes out to get the round hole into the round peg. So it's about both sides understanding who we are. And what I would say to people if they're coming on board is, look, my most important thing is you're happy. Because if you're not happy, it's not going to work for us. And so it's really eyes wide open. There's no cage. There's no lock and padlock. Everyone's free to move if they're not feeling it. But rather than make those errors, I just eyes wide open as much as possible.
Yeah, I think that's such an important area, and that honesty and transparency in that kind of courtship of a hiring process. I think sometimes I've seen organizations want to say what they need to say to bring somebody in, and then you don't end up with the right fit, right? So we're very similar to you, right? Like, our environment is not for everyone, but for the right person, it's very rewarding and energizing, and those are the people that kind of stay and grow long term. But I find there's a parallel between that hiring process and, for us on the sales side, consultative selling, is you want to set clear expectations, give as real and honest a view as possible, and you're building this foundation from which you can, bring in the right people, the right clients, et cetera.
And you're 100% right, and you're still going to find client fit that isn't quite the right fit. You're still going to find those ones that come in and everyone thinks with good expectation and then it doesn't work. You're never going to be 100%, but it is very, very similar, as you say, to, bringing a team member on, bringing a client on. It's the same process. Really, all we want between us is the right fit. But sometimes we might not say it in the right way, and it might be that, signals are missed or everyone understands different things. But ultimately, if you could, and especially in your line of business, I think it'd be brilliant if you could have a transparency button which anyone going to any website could press and know exactly what it was and exactly what everything meant. Then they'd know if it was for them. And that would save so much sort of false courtship. It'd be interesting. I'd be curious on your view there.
Yeah. No, I think it's very true. And right, there's different permutations around kind of who makes the right fit. Like in our example, like of a client fit. But whether you kind of already coming in with a lot of understanding and appreciation for marketing, or maybe you don't have that, but your organization needs that to move to the next level. So regardless of the starting point, I think a lot of it does come to just having those open and honest discussions, setting the right expectations, and bringing that through. I think the challenge that our industry faces, and I think you probably see this a lot in customer experience disciplines, is if others around you might kind of overpromise and underdeliver or tell people what they want to hear, you're sometimes not working from kind of a clean slate. You're working from kind of negative impressions that then you have to overcome that have nothing to do with your own business.
Yeah, you definitely are. And I think one thing that bridges that gap, like in our case, was, a common acquaintance who knows both parties and helps with the matchmaking. And those are really powerful ways, whether it's for people to work with you or whether it's for customers, whatever it is, having that bridge of trust really helps. It's like a shorthand to get through a lot of things that otherwise you might never end up working together.
Right. Which I think, you were talking about partnerships earlier and working with the BPOs and presumably other types of partners that creates that shared relationship and that bridge of trust.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's why, whether it's BPOs, whether it's VARs, integrators, they know their clients. And all we're looking for is them to know us and know the solution. And once they do, then why wouldn't they be the trusted party to bring the solution to their customers? Of course, that makes all the sense in the world.
Yes. I want to shift gears a little bit, Pete, and I'm in some ways surprised we haven't broached this topic yet at this point in the conversation. But I want to hear, with all the, technology out there, generative AI, I know is having a big impact on your field. Can you talk about, how you're thinking about it as part of, Grypp's evolution, whether internally or kind of more broadly in the market?
Yeah, you're absolutely right. I mean, there's barely any conversation in contact center industry that's not about AI in one form or another. Either people are super excited or super petrified or combination thereof. I think it's definitely the talking point and driving force of a ton of decisions and change right now. And it's, in my book, it's exciting. It's the birth of a change the likes of which I don't think we've seen before, and won't see for some time. The sheer scale and pace of change is phenomenal. And I think from our side, in the industry in general, it sort of comes in layers. So, it starts off as a directive, such as we saw with Klarna, replace everyone with AI, cut the costs. And I think that's now getting really tempered down somewhat as people realize that the power's in the combination. I mean, not least of which, if you replaced everyone with AI, who would buy any of the products? It's great to drive the cost base down, but if no one's got a job and can't buy the product, that's going to be a sort of slightly, miserable outcome for everyone in the long term. So I think everyone's getting their head around the fact that it's a combination, but there's still waves where we want efficiencies at the transactional level. So we want anything that can be done easily to be served efficiently and effortlessly, and AI handles that beautifully. Then you go up the next level, you want customers to serve themselves. Again, that takes away frustrations for the customer. If I can answer my own query easily, life's good. But when you can't do those things, when those things aren't helping, then you're at the point of inflection where that human interaction is needed and that really more complex conversations taking place. And I think that's the area we're serving fundamentally at the moment, is this bridging where all of the agents are now handling more and more complex scenarios constantly, because the easy stuff's been done and being done either by AI or self-serve, and the human is needed for those complexities. The customer, on the other hand, has less patience because they've already been through 2 layers. They're not getting where they need to. Their expectations are high. We've got to arm people, equip them properly. And our simple premise is, listen, let both sides see the same thing, right? You just add sight and you're going to solve things faster. You're going to make conversations better. You're going to take friction away. You're going to do it in less time. You're going to get better outcomes. So that's really, a huge part of the play. Obviously, there's a role for AI within visualization. Right now, AI is one-dimensional. It's words-based. Everything's going off that. When you add the other dimension of visual intelligence to that, it'll feed the machine and the LLM. Everything will be transformational. It will bring a whole new way of looking at the world. So I think that's exciting, and we see that constancy for improvement and feeding back of data and these visual touch points as a big contributor, and architecting so that we have visual fields which are AI automated, but they can escalate really effortlessly with agents who are also equipped visually to handle the problems. So I think they're all, everything is now hand in glove. It's never a pendulum. It never stops on all or nothing. You've just got to find the right way of doing it. And again, for us, we're I think we like people to get value straight away. It's this whole concept of immediate and enduring value. The idea of putting a big amount of money down without knowing where the outcomes are going to be is an anathema. So doing this in an iterative way that makes sense when it's live and going is part of our modeling process, rather than having a big investment to see if something works. And I think that was the old days, and there was a lot of blood on the floor on people who spent a lot of money and got no value out. And I think, we look at it a lot more practically than that. I think you can bring a lot of value with a little spend.
How do you think about where to make those investments in kind of your own business and kind of continually enhancing the product? Kind of who in your organization is involved? How much is you? What can you talk a little bit about how that works?
So from our side, we have our CPO makes the majority of those decisions, but done in consultation. We've got a phenomenal head of ops and IT who together will sit and work through all of the possibilities and permutations. It's a never-ending process, and really it's one is what are we doing within product, and two is how can we capitalize on the efficiencies even within organizations. So typically on that side at the moment, we're looking at the whole go-to-market side, as I know you are, as I know your world has probably changed more than most, or it's perhaps equally going to be affected to the call center world in a way, because yesterday it was all about SEO, SEO, SEO. Now the search process is totally different. I mean, it'd be interesting to see how are you dealing with that?
Yeah. It's interesting, I have a lot of conversations, and we have a company initiative around really looking at, as you said, both the internal optimizations, but also how we can bring kind of new, better, et cetera, to our clients. And there's a bit of the, focusing in the near term, where can we optimize, and then human plus AI, as you were alluding to. But I've been very focused and interested in looking at, where is the go-to-market function headed in the longer run. I just started reading the book, what is it called? Leaders Make the Future. That's been recommended to me a few times. I finally pulled the trigger and started reading it. And it talks a lot about looking 10 years out, and then something called backcasting, where you have insights about where the market is headed. Nobody's a mind reader, but having that foresight and then working through all of the permutations. So thinking about, in a world where, content comes easily and at the click of a button, what does that mean for, how do you get attention online? In a world where websites might, in some cases, be kind of one agent talking to another, what does that mean? Convergence of sales and marketing. So I think there's these kind of disciplines that are really helpful to think about where things are headed, and then also not to do that in a vacuum. So I get a lot of value from, my peer groups, both other professional services firms, other marketing agency leaders, to really find that balance where can we have near-term impact, but also kind of skate where the puck is going, as I like the Wayne Gretzky quote, rather than only being so mired in where things are today.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. We have to be looking for that next wave and getting as informed as we can be, from our side, internally as a team. We're starting to challenge now that all of us need to raise the bar in terms of levels of understanding and adoption of AI and any enhancement capabilities that's going to bring in our various areas. But I think you're right. These sessions with peers, industry events, there's so much data out there. It's finding those good sources, which you're going to go down a number of rabbit holes on this stuff. But you've just got to keep going and find the nuggets that provide great value, and then bring those to the table and learn from those.
Yeah. Pete, I would love to learn a little bit more about you. So we've talked a lot about your insights on the market and how you've led your organization. Can you tell me a bit about kind of your background? Who were you as a child? Did you always think you'd be kind of an entrepreneur running multiple businesses over the years? Tell me a bit more about yourself.
Yeah, I suppose as a child, I was, I'm not sure my parents knew where I'd come from, in that, my mum was a teacher, my dad was an engineer, and I was this kid that asked, I think it was at 7 years old, I'd asked to be taken into Chester, which was our local city, dropped off in this street called Watergate Street, left with my pound or whatever, my money that I had, and I would go down this street, which was renowned for antique shops, and I would find something in one, buy that, sell it to someone in another, buy something from them, take it to another, take it across. And I'd just go to everyone in the street knew me. And I would just be doing little deals here and there all the way down. And then I'd get picked up a couple of hours later by my ever patient dad. And I think they were just astounded, but just, they had the great encouragement that they gave was just, see where you go, son. You're brilliant. You'll either be a millionaire or in jail, and that was the view from dad. And I think I just love everything about business, or always have. I'm fascinated, how it works, how it could be better. And I think that's really led to here. And I'm not, it isn't, there are those people, and, it's like anything you do. I ended up, my first job was at Eastman Kodak as it was, and I went into the document management arm of Kodak, so selling large systems that were compressing documents and systemizing so that it was more efficient and safer and easier to store and all those sort of things. But it just gave me a deep sense of just wanting to improve things. And, naively, I used to think, well, what happens when I've sold everyone one of these? What's the next thing? Just the naivety, thinking you're going to go and do these. And it's like that excitement. It's like, anything's possible, right? It's dreaming. And I think I'm much more on the sort of romantics and pirate scale than I am on the process. I think, I find creativity such a pleasure. I think I'm in awe of artists and creatives, and I think business has creativity. And if you can play your part in that, it's as valid and valuable as anything else. And I think, one of the talks that I enjoyed the most for its stark revelation was former CEO of, I think it's the Royal Bank of Scotland, who'd gone from this small bank to being one of the largest in the world through lots of different means. But the speaker was saying, everyone's focused on cost cutting. And let me tell you, there's only so far you can cut costs. But if you want to increase profits, your capacity to sell more is infinite. And for me, that was just such a beautiful way of looking at business. And I think that's why we were heavily focused on the sales side, because for me, it felt that was the biggest way to really affect the outcome and trajectory of a business, was to look at how you can impact that sale. Efficiency is great, but not at the expense of growth. And it's that growth, it's that creativity. That's where my heart lies. Yeah.
I love that. While we're talking around this thread, I'd love to ask you maybe a more introspective question. And thinking of all of your experience over the years, if you were, sitting in a room with your younger self, in your first leadership role, what advice would you give yourself?
I think it's a hard one to answer, other than I think recognize the value of great people a lot sooner. So, in other words, don't focus as much on yourself and what you're going to do and how you're going to do this. Really lean in to how much great people can move the needle and how much they can really alter ultimately your trajectory. So I think that would be that would be certainly a really big lesson. I think on the other hand, if you could spend a lot of your life focused on process and growth and this and that, I think you've got to enjoy life, and you got to, smell the coffee, smell the flowers, take the time out. And I think I feel I've done that, but I would definitely say that to my younger self 100 times over. I think too many times we're focused on the end outcome. And if you get there, well done you. But when you look back, was that really the best use of your life? And I think when you've gone, I love travel and meeting people. And that to me is the biggest reward, and you take all of that with you. And I think it's, the journey's got to be enjoyable. And if it's not enjoyable, don't do it. I think that's a big, a big principle to stand by.
I couldn't agree more. I completely agree with what you're saying, and yet it can be easy to forget when you're in the day-to-day. So I love that advice. I really do.
Right.
And I think that brings us to a great place to wrap on such a pivotal note. So Pete, if people want to get in touch with you, what's the best way to reach you?
Happily, pete.jones@grypp.io, GRYPP.io. Love to hear from anyone. And yeah, I'd be really interested to get any feedback and discuss business and change and new opportunities with any of your fab listeners.
Thank you. That's wonderful. Thank you again so much for all of your contributions to this.
Great talking to you. Really enjoyed it.
And thank you, too, to everyone that's listening. I know I loved hearing about so much of what Pete shared, from the casual conversation he had at a bar that drove a major pivot in the business. I think it's such a great reminder that, big shifts start small, and the importance for us to be kind of open to those new insights and ideas and trusting our gut to kind of explore and invest in the right places for our business. If today's episode gave you any valuable insights, and I am sure that it did, please share this with someone. We know that sharing this kind of knowledge and information helps all of us grow as leaders and helps us drive successful innovation and transformation in our organizations. So thanks again, Pete. And this has been another wonderful conversation on Shift and Thrive. I'll see you all next time. That's a wrap for this week's episode. For show notes and more, visit shiftandthrivepodcast.com. A special thank you to our sponsor, Magnitude Consulting, bringing you the thinking power of a growth consultancy and the getting it done power of a full-service marketing agency to help B2B companies fuel their growth. For more information on Magnitude and to get your complimentary transformation readiness assessment, visit magnitudeconsulting.com/getready. Thank you so much for listening. We'll see you next week.